Hello students, my name is Niyati Said and thanks for watching Edpedia Word videos. My topic for the presentation is the fifth section of the chapter Locomotion and Movement. In this section of presentation, we'll be studying about the human skeletal system. Okay. A skeletal system consists of a framework of bones and few cartilages. This system has a significant role in movement. Imagine chewing food without jaw bones and walking around without the limb bones. Is it possible? No, it is not possible. Bones and cartilage, they are specialized connective tissues. The former, that is bones, they are very hard matrix due to calcium salts deposition in it. But the cartilage, they have slightly pliable matrix due to chondroitin salts. In human beings, the system is made up of 206 bones and few cartilages. It is grouped into two principal divisions. First is your axial and second is your appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton consists of 80 bones and on the contrary to this, appendicular skeleton consists of 126 bones. Please note that the skeleton of different designs are needed for the aquatic or terrestrial animals. But we'll study the human skeletal system here. Okay, so the human skeletal system, it is divided into two main categories. First is your axial skeleton and second is your appendicular skeletal system. First is your axial skeleton system, which consists of 80 bones. Okay, so this is the first part of the human skeletal system. It lies along the longitudinal axis of the body and includes skull, vertebral column, sternum and ribs. Whereas appendicular skeleton, which consists of 126 bones, they consist of four categories: bones of forelimbs, bones of hind limb, pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle. Please note that axial skeleton consists of four categories. First is your skull, second is your vertebral column, third is your sternum and fourth is your ribs. First is your skull. Skull is the endoskeleton of head and it lies at the upper end of the vertebral column. And skull consists of four portions: the cranium, face, hyoid and sensory capsules. And skull, students, skull is made up of 29 bones. Now comes vertebral column. Vertebral column, it is also called as spinal column or backbone. It is long, curved, bony rod which is present on the dorsal side of the neck and trunk. And this vertebral column consists of four regions, which are those: cervical region, thoracic region, lumbar region, sacral region and caudal region, which I have already taught you in my previous section of the presentation. Okay. Now comes sternum. Sternum is also known as breastbone. It is flat, it is elongated, it is dagger shaped bone which is present on the mid-ventral side of the thorax. And the sternum, this is sternum, okay, from here to here, this is sternum. So it is about 15 centimeter long and main parts are upper handle manubrium. This is upper handle manubrium. Okay, then the middle part, this is the middle part and it is the largest part called the body. And then come the lower cartilaginous, this is the lower cartilaginous plate, which we call it as xiphoid cartilage. Okay, And then comes last is your ribs. Ribs, there are 12 pairs of arched circular bones present in the thorax. See, these are the ribs. These are 12 in number, or you can say they are 12 pairs. Okay, and the ribs are of 3 types, which are those: true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs, which I have already taught you. Okay, now the second part of the human skeleton system is the appendicular skeleton. It lies along the transverse axis of the body, and it includes 2 types of girdles and limb bones. See, this is the pectoral girdle, this is the pelvic girdle. Okay, and limbs. Okay, bones of the hind limb and bones of the forelimb. So this is appendicular skeleton. First is your we'll talk about the pectoral girdle. Pectoral, these are 2 in number, each formed of 2 bones, clavicle and scapula. This is pectoral girdle. Okay, now comes pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle, these are pelvic girdles. Pelvic girdles, they are also known as hip girdles. These are located in the lower part of the trunk, and they are 2 in number. Each is formed of single stout innominate of hip bone, which is formed by the fusion of 3 bones. And which are those 3 bones? Ilium, pubis, and ischium. I'll teach you in detail. Okay, and then comes limb bones, and they are of 2 types: bones of forelimbs, that is hands, and bones of hind limbs, that is legs. Okay, and please note that bones of hind limbs, they are longer than those of the arms. These bones, they strengthen the leg, support body weight, and they help in location. And each hind limb is with 30 bones around. Okay, so this was all about axial and appendicular skeleton. Now axial skeleton we'll study in detail. As I have told you that there are 4 categories, which are those: first is your skull. See, first is your skull, vertebral column, sternum, and ribs. So skull will study in detail first. See, this is our skull, and it consists of cranial bones, which are 8 in number, and frontal. See, this is frontal bone, which is 1 in number, so 1. Parietal, which is also it is 2 in number. Okay, see, this is 2 in number, this is parietal bone. And then comes temporal bone, it is also 2 in number. And then occipital bone, which is 1 in number. And sphenoid bone, this is sphenoid bone just adjacent to the temporal bones. This is temporal bone, and this is sphenoid bone. And then comes ethmoid bone. This is ethmoid bone, which is again 1 in number. Okay, and then skull, as I have told you, that it consists of 29 bones. So 8 we have already studied. 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is equals to 8. So 8 are the cranial bones. Now comes the facial bones, which are 14 in number. So first is your nasal bone, which are 2 in number. And then comes maxillae. This is maxilla, upper jaw. Maxilla means upper jaw, which is also 2 in number. And then comes zygomatic bone, which is again 2 in number. This is 2 in number. And then comes lacrimal. This is lacrimal. It is also 2 in number. Or you can say lacrimal means tears. Okay. And then palatines. Palatine, they are also 2 in number. Inferior nasals, they are also 2 in number. Mandible is 1 in number. This is mandible, that means lower jaw. It is 1 in number. And vomer is also 1 in number. Okay, so this forms the facial bones, and which is about 14 in number. And then comes hyoid bone. See, this is a hyoid bone. It is U-shaped bone which is found at the floor of the buccal cavity. Okay, and it is 1 in number. And then comes ear ossicles. See, this is ear, and it has 6 bones in it. 2 pairs, you can 3 pairs, you can say, and 3 bones of the ear are malleus, incus, and stapes. Malleus, incus, and stape, and they are present in pairs in ears. Okay. Now the skull, as I have told you, that it consists of 29 bones which we have studied. And so the skull, it articulates, or articulates means moves with the first vertebra. Vertebra is the, you can say, the joining units of the vertebral column, and the first vertebra is known as atlas. Okay. So the skull moves with the first vertebra of the vertebral column with the help of 2 occipital condyles. Okay, occipital condyles we have already studied. This is occipital condyle, and the first vertebra is present somewhere here. So the articulation of the first vertebra takes place with the occipital condyle. Okay. Now comes vertebral column. Vertebral column is also known as your spine. See, this is your spine, and it is formed of 26 vertebrae, and they are 5 types, which are those: cervical vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae, lumbar vertebrae, sacral vertebrae, and coccygeal vertebrae. Okay, so it consists of 5 types of the vertebrae. Our vertebral column is formed of 26 serially arranged units, which we call it as vertebrae. See, these are vertebrae: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So these are your vertebrae. Okay. It extends from the base of the skull. See, this is our base of the skull. So it extends from the base of the skull, and it constitutes the main framework of the trunk. Each vertebrae has a central hollow portion. Okay, central hollow portion, which we call it as neural canal, through which a spinal cord passes. As I have told you that the first vertebrae, this is the first vertebrae, right? And above it there is an occipital condyle which is present in the skull. So the first vertebrae, which we also call it as atlas, they articulate or moves with the occipital condyle which is present in the skull. The vertebral column is differentiated into cervical. See, this is cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccyx, starting from the skull. Okay, the number of cervical vertebrae, they are 7 in almost all mammals, including human beings. Okay, so from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 till here. From here to here, these are cervical vertebrae. They are 7 in number. And then from 8 starts your thoracic vertebrae. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are thoracic vertebrae, so they are 12 in number. And then comes lumbar vertebrae. Lumbar vertebrae, they are 5 in number. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then comes sacral vertebrae. Sacral vertebrae, they are fused vertebrae. Okay, so they are 1 in number. We'll consider it as 1. And 1 is your coccyx bone, that is tailbone. Okay, so this is your tailbone. Okay, students, what's the function of vertebral column? This vertebral column, it protects the spinal cord, it supports the head, and it serves as a point of attachment for the ribs and musculature of the back. Okay. as I have told you that vertebra has a central vertebra. These are the units of the vertebral column. Okay, so the vertebra, they have a central hollow portion which we call it as neural canal. See, this is neural canal. Okay, and through which spinal cord passes. Number of the cervical vertebrae, they are 7 in almost all mammals that I have already taught you. See, this is your atlas, that is your first vertebrae, okay, and which helps in the movement, which moves with the help of the occipital condyle, which is present just above to it. Okay, so this is the overview of the vertebral column, and this is your neural canal through which spinal cord passes, and this is your vertebral foramen. Vertebral foramen and neural canal, they both are same. These are the spinous process which acts as an attachment site for the muscles. Okay, and this is the transverse foramen, which contains blood vessels, because of course your spinal cord needs blood vessels or blood supply. So this transverse foramen fulfill that thing. And then this is the body, and this is the facet, the area where the two vertebrae meet. Okay, so this was all about vertebral column. Now comes sternum. Sternum is also known as breastbone. Okay, it consists of one flat bone on the ventral midline of the thorax. Okay, and it is a flat, as you can see that this is the flat and elongated dagger shaped bone. See, this is dagger shaped bone, right? So this is your dagger shaped bone, and it is present on the mid ventral side of the thorax, and it is about 15 centimeter long, and main parts are your manubrium. This is the manubrium, which is the upper bone to which first and the second ribs attach, and then comes your middle body, which is of course the largest part of the sternum, and it is long, narrow, and the middle bone. And these are the notches, these are the indents where the ribs attach to the sternum. See, ribs, they attach to the sternum, and ribs, they are 12 in number, right? And then comes your xiphoid process. Xiphoid process is a lower small cartilage plate, which we call it as xiphoid cartilage. Okay, so this is sternum. That is your breastbone, which is present in the mid ventral side of the thorax, and it is flat, elongated, dagger shaped bone. Okay, and which is about 15 centimeter long, and through these notches ribs gets attached. Okay, see, this is your breastbone, and through notches of the breastbone ribs are attached. Okay, so now comes your ribs. Ribs, as I have told you, that they are 12 pairs of the out circular bones. These are the circular bones, right? So they are like circular bones which are present in the thorax, and each rib is formed of posterior body ventral part and anterior cartilaginous sternal part, that I have already taught you. And the ribs are of three types: true ribs, which is about present in pairs; vertebral chondral, this is the second type of the ribs, which we call it as false ribs, and they are 8th, 9th, and 10th. And these 11th and 12th, they are your floating ribs. Okay, that means they just float. That's why they are called as floating ribs. Okay, and now comes that, see, these are the this is your breastbone. From here to here. This is your breastbone, and these are the notches of the breastbone through which your ribs gets attached to the sternum. Okay, see, from 1st to 7 these are your true ribs, and from 8 to 10 they are your false ribs, and 11 and 12, these are 11 and 12 which are floating ribs. Okay, so each rib has 2 articulation surfaces on its dorsal end, so it is called bicephalic. Okay, and these blue colored thing is your cartilage. So the true ribs from 1st to 7th, they are attached to the thoracic vertebrae of the vertebral column, which I have taught you just previous to the sternum. Okay, so they are true ribs, they are attached to the thoracic vertebrae and ventrally connected to the sternum with the help of hyaline cartilage. So what is this? This is your hyaline cartilage, this blue part. Okay, now comes false ribs. 8th, 9th and 10th are your false ribs. So they do not move directly with the sternum, but join the 7th rib with the help of hyaline cartilage. See, this is your 7th rib, which is your true rib, but 8th, 9th and 10th, these are your false ribs, and they are not directly attached to the sternum, but yeah, they join 7th rib, and then 7th rib is attached with the sternum. So that's the reason they are called as false ribs. And then comes your floating ribs. 11th and 12th are your floating ribs, and they are not connected ventrally. Okay, ventrally, this is the ventral part, and the dorsal part is the backward part. Okay, so floating ribs, they are not connected ventrally with the sternum. Okay, and now comes appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton, the bones of the limbs along with their girdles constitute appendicular skeleton, and appendicular skeleton, they consist of 6. See, I have told you that the bones of the 4 limbs. So the bone of 4 limbs, they are around 60 in number. Okay, and they include humerus bone, radius, ulna, carpal, metacarpal and phalanges. See, this is our bones of the 4 limb, that is our hand. Okay, so it consists of humerus, which is 1 in number. Okay, so this is your humerus, and then comes radius and ulna. So this is your radius, which is again 1 in number. This is your ulna, which is again 1 in number. Then comes your carpals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are your carpals, which is also known as wrist bone, and they are 8 in number. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so these are your carpals. They are also known as wrist bones, and these are your metacarpals, which is known as palm bones, and they are 5 in number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then comes your phalanges. Phalanges, they are, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So these are the phalanges, and which are about 14 in number. Okay, so these are the bones of the 4 limb. Okay, and then comes your bones of the hind limb. Okay, so now comes the bones of the hind limb. They are again 60 in number, and they include femur, patella, tibia, fibula, tarsals and metatarsals and phalanges bones. Okay, so they are also 60 in number, just like bones of the 4 limb. Okay, now comes femur. Femur is a thigh bone. See, this is your thigh bone, and it is 1 in number. And then comes patella. Patella is a kneecap, which is again 1 in number. Then comes tibia. Tibia is also 1 in number. Fibula. Fibula is again 1 in number. Tarsals, they are tarsals is also known as ankle bones. They are 7 in number. Remember, in the bones of the forelimb, I have taught you the wrist bone. They were 8 in number. But here in case of hind limb, that is leg, tarsals, they are also known as ankle bone, but they are 7 in number. Okay. See, this is tarsal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so they are tarsal. Then comes metatarsal. They are 5 in number. Okay, from here to here they are 5 in number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then come phalanges. Phalanges, see, in toe we have just one joint. Okay, but in the wrist fingers we have two joints. So 3 joints. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. Now, as I have told you that appendicular skeleton consists of bones of the forelimbs as well as bones of the pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle. Okay, so bones of the hind limb and the forelimb we have already studied. Now comes your pectoral girdle. Okay, pectoral girdle is the shoulder joint, you can say, and this consists of the girdle including both pectoral as well as pelvic girdle. Okay, so the pectoral girdle, it lies on the posterolateral aspect of the upper region of the thorax, that is your shoulder. Okay, and it consists of 2 bones, and which are those? First is your clavicle and second is your scapula. Okay, so the clavicle, see, this is your clavicle. Clavicle is your collarbone. Okay, it is a long curved bone. See, this is your long curved bone forming the anterior part of the shoulder girdle, and it has a shaft. It has a shaft and 2 extremities. See, this one extremity is this and second extremity is this, and the medial extremity is called as sternal extremity. Okay, but we won't go into detail of it. But just know that see, I have taught you the bones of the forelimbs. Humerus, this is your humerus, which is a bone of a forelimb. So it articulates with the scapula. Okay, scapula joint. Okay, and type of joint is ball and socket joint. In my next presentation I'll be teaching you the joints, types of joints, but for the time being just know that these are ball and socket joint, which is between humerus, which is a bone of a forelimb, and your pectoral girdle. Okay, so the clavicle is again 2 in number and scapula is again 2 in number. Scapula, you can say that it is a triangular flat bone. As you can see, this is a triangular flat bone which shows 2 surfaces, 3 angle and 3 borders. Okay, and it forms the posterior part of the shoulder girdle, and it lies at the back of the humans, or you can say it lies at the back of the thorax, superficially to the ribs. Okay, now so this is your scapula, which is large triangular flat shaped bone, and which is situated in the dorsal part of the thorax between 2nd and the 7th rib. Okay, 7th rib is your true rib, right? And then comes your scapula. Scapula, this is a slightly elevated ridge which projects as a flat expanded process, which we call it as acromion. Okay, and clavicle, this clavicle, it moves with the help of acromion. Okay, and what is this? This is your, see, this is your acromion, and below the acromion is a depression. See, this is the depression which is found in the scapula, which we call it as glenoid cavity, and through this this humerus, which is the bone of a forelimb, that is your hand, it articulates or it moves with the head of the humerus to form the shoulder joint. So this is how pectoral girdle forms. Now comes pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle, it is two bones which are present. See, this is your pelvic girdle, and it is made up of three bones. Ilium, which is the largest bone in pelvis. Second is your pubis, which forms front of the pelvis, and third bone is your ischium, which is the strongest and lowest bone in the pelvis. Okay, so each coxal bone is formed by the fusion of three bones: ilium, ischium, and pubis. Okay, so this is our pelvic girdle. Okay, so at the point of a fusion of ilium, ischium, and pubis is a cavity which we call it as acetabulum. Okay, which we call it as acetabulum. This is your acetabulum. Okay, to which thigh bone articulates. So from here, thigh bone moves, or you can say articulates. Okay, the two halves of the pelvic girdle meet ventrally to form pubic symphysis. This is your pubic area, or which forms the front of the pelvis. Okay, that contains fibrous cartilage. Okay, so this was all about the axial and the appendicular skeleton overview. Now in the next section of the presentation, we'll be studying each one in detail. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Edupedia Word videos.